The stars had always been beautiful from New Busan. The orbital colony floated above Earth like a jewel in the darkness, home to 3 million souls who looked up at the night sky with wonder. But tonight, Yoon Hana did not see beauty. She saw death coming. The alarm had started 20 minutes ago. Red lights flashed through the narrow corridors of the resistance base. People ran in every direction, their faces pale with fear. Hana stood still in the middle of it all, staring at the holographic display that showed thousands of enemy ships appearing at the edge of human space. The Kel Empire had returned. "How many?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Over 8,000 warships," answered the young soldier beside her. His hands were shaking. "The largest fleet ever recorded. They will reach Earth in 6 days." Hana closed her eyes. 5 years. They had 5 years of peace after the first galactic siege. 5 years to rebuild, to heal, to forget. But the Kel had not forgotten. They had been preparing, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to strike. And humanity was not ready. The resistance base was small, hidden deep within New Busan's lower levels. Only 200 fighters remained under Hana's command. 200 against 8,000 warships. The math was simple. The math was death. She walked through the base, past rows of old weapons and broken equipment, past young men and women who had never seen real war. They looked at her with hope in their eyes, waiting for her to tell them everything would be okay. She could not lie to them. In the back room, an old man sat in a wheelchair. His hair was white, his body weak, but his eyes still burned with sharp intelligence. Park Sung-ho had been a legend once, the greatest military mind humanity had ever produced. Now he was just an old man waiting to die. "You heard?" Hana asked. Sung-ho nodded slowly. "I heard. The Queen herself leads the fleet." "Queen Vetra." Hana spoke the name like a curse. "She wants to finish what she started." "No," Sung-ho said. "She wants revenge. There is a difference." Hana sat down across from him. The room was quiet except for the distant sound of alarms. "Our fleet is scattered. The colonies are defenseless. Earth's shields can hold for maybe 3 days. What do we do?" Sung-ho was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small data chip. He placed it on the table between them. "There is only one way," he said. Hana looked at the chip. "What is this?" "Coordinates to a planet called Haru 7. Far from here, far from everything." Sung-ho's voice grew heavy. "That is where he went. After the war, after everything." Hana's heart stopped. She understood immediately who Sung-ho meant. Everyone knew the stories. Everyone remembered the legend. Kang Tai-ho, the Reaper of Vega. "He is alive?" she breathed. "He is alive, but he is not the man you remember. War broke him, Hana. The killing broke him. He went to Haru 7 to escape, to forget, to become someone else." Seung-ho's eyes were sad. "I promised him I would never call him back. I promised him peace. But now you want me to bring him back to war. I want humanity to survive." Seung-ho leaned forward. "You were there, Hana, at the Battle of Vega Station. You saw what he did." Hana remembered. She wished she could forget, but she remembered everything. She had been just 20 years old, a combat medic on her first real mission. The Kel had surrounded Vega Station with 500 ships. 10,000 alien soldiers boarded the station, killing everyone in their path. Humanity's forces were overwhelmed. Defeat was certain. Then Kang Tai-ho arrived. He came alone, in a small ship that should have been destroyed instantly. But somehow he landed. Somehow he got inside. And then the killing began. Hana had watched from a hiding spot as Tai-ho walked through the corridors of Vega Station. His black armor was like nothing she had ever seen. His movements were fast, precise, and absolutely deadly. Kel soldiers fired at him from every direction. He moved through their bullets like water through fingers. In 6 hours, he killed over 3,000 Kel soldiers, alone. The floors were covered in silver blood. The walls were painted with it. And in the middle of it all stood Tai-Ho, silent and still, surrounded by mountains of alien bodies. The surviving Kel soldiers ran. They actually ran from a single human. That was the day the Kel learned to fear. That was the day humanity found hope. But Hana also remembered what came after. She remembered finding Tai-Ho sitting alone in an empty room, his helmet removed, his face wet with tears. He had not been crying for himself. He had been crying for all the lives he had taken, even alien lives. "He is broken," Hana said softly. "You said it yourself. How can a broken man save us?" Seong-ho smiled, but it was a sad smile. Because broken men have nothing left to lose and nothing left to fear. Far away, on the bridge of the massive Kel flagship called Dominion, Queen Vetra stood before a window that showed the stars. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes deep purple, her body tall and elegant. She was beautiful in the way that knives are beautiful, sharp and cold and deadly. Around her stood dozens of commanders and officers, all waiting in silence. They feared their queen almost as much as they feared the enemy. 6 days, Vetra said, her voice like ice. In 6 days we will reach Earth. In 7 days, humanity will be nothing but a memory. Commander Draal, her most trusted general, stepped forward. He was massive, even for a Kel, with scars covering his face from 100 battles. "The humans will fight," he said. "They always fight. Let them." Vetra turned to face her commanders. "Their fleets are scattered. Their heroes are dead or hiding. The one they called the Reaper has been gone for 5 years. He is broken. He will not return." A young officer spoke nervously. "But, Your Majesty, what if he does return? The Reaper, I mean. What if—" Vetra moved so fast that no one saw her hand. The young officer fell to the ground, a deep cut across his face. He screamed in pain. "He will not return," Vetra repeated, her voice rising. "His kind breaks under guilt, under the weight of what they have done. He is sitting on some forgotten planet, crying over the soldiers he killed. He is no threat to us." The bridge was silent. No one dared to speak. But deep in Vetra's heart, in a place she would never show to anyone, there was fear. She remembered Vega Station. She remembered watching the security feeds as a single human destroyed her finest warriors. She remembered running. A queen of the Kel Empire, running from one man. She would never run again. She would burn every human world to ashes before she let that happen. On New Busan, Hana picked up the data chip and held it tight in her hand. She looked at Seong-ho one last time. "If I find him," she said, "and if he refuses to come back, what do I tell him?" Seong-ho closed his eyes. "Tell him the children are dying. Tell him Earth is burning." He paused. "Tell him I am sorry for breaking my promise." Hana nodded and walked out the door. Behind her, the old man sat alone in the darkness, wondering if he had just saved humanity or doomed the only man he had ever called a son. Haru 7 was a quiet world. No cities. No technology. Just endless fields of golden wheat under a soft orange sky. It was the kind of place people went to disappear. The kind of place where legends went to die. Hana's ship landed at the edge of a small farm. Lee Nari, her pilot and closest friend, stayed at the controls while Hana stepped outside. The air smelled like earth and growing things. It was peaceful. It was wrong. This was not a place for warriors. She walked toward the small house at the center of the farm. It was made of wood and stone, simple and plain. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was home. Hana stopped at the door. Her heart was beating fast. She had not seen Kang Tae-ho in 5 years. The last time he had been covered in blood, standing in a room full of dead aliens, looking like a god of war. Now she would find him here, in this tiny house, on this forgotten planet. She knocked. The door opened, and Hannah almost did not recognize the man standing before her. Tae-ho looked old, not in years but in spirit. His hair was long and messy, his beard had grown thick. His eyes, once sharp and dangerous, were now tired and empty. He wore simple farmer clothes, and his hands were dirty from working the soil. He looked at Hannah for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Go away." He tried to close the door, but Hannah put her foot in the way. "The Kel are coming," she said. 8,000 ships. They will reach Earth in 5 days. Tae-ho did not react. His face stayed empty. "I know. I heard the news." "Then you know we need you. Humanity needs you. Humanity needs to learn to save itself." Tae-ho turned away and walked back into his house. "I am not a weapon anymore. I am just a farmer now." Hannah followed him inside. The house was small and clean. There was a bed in one corner, a kitchen in another. No weapons, no armor. Nothing that showed who this man used to be. "Where is it?" she asked. "Where is what?" "Your armor, your weapons, the black suit that made the Kel run in fear." Tae-ho sat down at his wooden table. He did not look at her. "Buried, behind the house, deep in the ground where it belongs." Hannah felt anger rising in her chest. "People are dying. Children are dying. And you sit here growing vegetables?" "Yes." Tae-ho's voice was flat. "That is exactly what I do. I grow food. I watch the sunrise. I try to sleep without seeing their faces." "Whose faces?" "Everyone I killed." Tae-ho finally looked at her, and Hannah saw something terrible in his eyes. Pain. Deep, endless pain. "Do you know how many I killed at Vega Station? 3,217. I remember every single one. I see them every night when I close my eyes." Hannah sat down across from him. "They were enemies. They were trying to kill us. They were alive. They had families, children waiting for them to come home." Tae-ho's hands were shaking. "I tell myself they were evil, that they deserved to die. But late at night, when everything is quiet, I know the truth. I am a monster, Hannah. The humans call me a hero. The Kel call me a demon. But I am just a monster who is very good at killing." The room was silent. Outside, the wind moved through the wheat fields, making soft sounds like whispers. "Sung-ho sent me," Hannah said quietly. Tae-ho closed his eyes. "Of course he did. He wanted me to tell you he is sorry. For breaking his promise. The old man made a lot of promises." Tae-ho stood up and walked to the window. "He promised me rest. He promised me peace. He promised that humanity would never need me again. He was wrong. Yes, he was wrong." Tae-ho pressed his forehead against the glass. "But I cannot go back. I cannot become that thing again. The Reaper died 5 years ago. Let him stay dead." Hannah stood up. She walked to Tae-ho and put her hand on his shoulder. He flinched at the touch. "The Kel attacked New Busan this morning," she said. "While I was traveling here, they bombed the lower districts." Tae-ho did not move. "How many?" 12,000 dead. Most of them were refugees, families hiding from the war." Hannah's voice broke. "They found a school, Tae-ho. The Kel found a school and they burned it. 83 children. The youngest was 4 years old." The silence stretched out like a knife. Tae-ho's hands slowly formed into fists. His breathing changed. Something in the air shifted, like the moment before a storm breaks. "They broadcast it," Hannah continued. "Across every channel. They wanted us to see. They wanted us to be afraid." "And Queen Vetra?" Tae-ho's voice was different now, harder, colder. "She laughed. She stood on her ship and laughed while the children burned." Taeho turned around. The emptiness in his eyes was gone. In its place was something Hana remembered. Something that made her take a step back, even though she knew he would never hurt her. The Reaper was waking up. Without a word, Taeho walked out of the house. Hana followed him to the back, where a patch of earth looked different from the rest. Newer, recently turned. Taeho grabbed a shovel and began to dig. He dug with fury, throwing dirt in every direction. Hana watched in silence as the hole grew deeper and deeper. Then the shovel hit something metal. The black armor emerged from the earth like a corpse rising from its grave. It was beautiful and terrifying, plates of dark metal that seemed to absorb light itself, a helmet with a visor that glowed faint red, weapons built into every surface. Taeho pulled the armor out piece by piece and laid it on the ground. For a long moment, he just stood there, looking at the thing he had tried to bury forever. "Tell Nari to prepare the ship," he said. Far away on the Dominion, a young officer ran onto the bridge with terror on his face. "Your Majesty, emergency transmission from our scout ships." Queen Vetra turned slowly. "Speak." "A single human vessel just entered the system. It came out of nowhere. Configuration matches historical records." The officer could barely breathe. "It is the Reaper's ship." The bridge went completely silent. Every officer, every soldier, every commander froze in place. Queen Vetra felt her heart stop. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Her hands, which had not trembled in decades, began to shake. "That is impossible," she whispered. "He is broken. He is hiding. He would not." The transmission screen flickered to life. A face appeared, a human face with cold eyes and a jaw set like stone. Kang Tae-ho looked directly at Vetra, and she felt something she had not felt in years. Fear. Pure, absolute fear. Tae-ho spoke only 6 words before the transmission ended. "Tell your queen I am coming." The screen went dark. On the bridge of the Dominion, no one moved. No one spoke. Queen Vetra stood frozen, staring at the empty screen, her silver face drained of all color. The Reaper had risen from his grave, and he was coming home. The news spread faster than light itself. Through every human colony, every refugee ship, every hidden resistance base, the message traveled like fire through dry grass. The Reaper has returned. Kang Tae-ho is alive. On a small mining station near Jupiter, an old soldier dropped his tools and wept. On a refugee convoy fleeing toward the outer systems, children who had only heard stories began to chant his name. On Earth, in the dark shelters where millions hid from the coming invasion, people looked up from their despair and felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope. Taeho's ship arrived at the resistance base on New Busan 3 days before the Kell fleet would reach Earth. Hana led him through the narrow corridors, past rows of fighters who stopped and stared with wide eyes. Some of them bowed. Others reached out to touch him as he passed, as if he were something holy. He ignored them all. His face was stone. His eyes looked only forward. Park Sung-ho was waiting in the command center. The old man in the wheelchair looked up as Tae-ho entered, and tears rolled down his wrinkled cheeks. "You came," Sung-ho whispered. "You actually came." Tae-ho stood before his old mentor. For a moment, the hardness in his face softened. "You knew I would. You knew what message to send." "The children." "Yes, the children." Tae-ho's voice was heavy. "I could ignore the attacks. I could ignore the dying soldiers. But children, Sung-ho? She burned children to make a point." Sung-ho wiped his eyes. "I am sorry for calling you back. I know what I promised." "Your promise died with those 83 children." Tae-ho looked at the holographic display showing enemy positions. "Now show me what we are facing." The situation was worse than Hana had described. The Kell fleet had grown even larger as more ships joined from distant systems. 8,000 had become 10,000. Human forces were scattered across dozens of locations, too far apart to combine into a single defense. Earth's orbital defenses could hold for perhaps 2 days. After that, nothing would stand between the Kell and complete victory. "We cannot win a direct battle," Shung-Ho said. "We do not have the ships." "Then we do not fight a direct battle." Tae-ho studied the display with sharp eyes. "Where is Vetra's flagship?" "The Dominion, center of the fleet, surrounded by 3 defensive lines. It would take an army to reach her." "I do not need an army." Tae-ho pointed at a section of space marked in red. "What is this?" "The Crimson Gate, a choke point between 2 asteroid fields, the only path to Earth that can support a fleet that size." "Then that is where we make our stand." Tae-ho turned to face the officers gathered in the room. "Send word to every human ship, every fighter, every transport, every piece of junk that can hold a weapon. Tell them to meet at the Crimson Gate in 2 days. A young officer spoke up nervously. "Sir, even if every ship answers, we will have maybe 500 vessels against 10,000. "I know. That is suicide." Tae-ho looked at the young man. There was no anger in his eyes, only certainty. 20 years ago, I stood alone against 10,000 Kell soldiers. Today, I will have 500 ships behind me. That is an improvement." The room was silent. Then, slowly, the officers began to nod. If the Reaper believed they could win, then maybe they could. Lee Nari found Tae-ho later in the weapons bay. She was young, barely 25, with short black hair and grease stains on her face from working on engines. She had been a child during the first galactic siege, but she had grown up on stories of the Reaper. "I built something for you," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "We all did. The engineers, I mean. We have been building it for 5 years, hoping you would come back." She led him to a hidden hangar where a ship waited under a white cover. Nari pulled the cover away, and Tae-ho stopped breathing. It was beautiful, a small attack vessel, black as midnight, with curves that seemed to cut through the air itself. Every surface was covered in advanced weapons. The engines glowed with blue fire, even while idle. "We called it the Night Wind," Nari said. "Fastest ship ever built by human hands. The armor can take direct hits from Kell warships. The weapons can cut through their shields like paper." Tae-ho walked around the ship, running his hand along its surface. "You built this for me?" "We built this for hope." Nari smiled despite her nervousness. "Every engineer who worked on it did so in secret, risking their lives. They did it because they believed you would return. Because they believed you would need it." For the first time since his return, something soft appeared in Tae-ho's eyes. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. Bring it back in one piece, and then we can talk about thanks." That night, Hana found Tae-ho alone on the observation deck, staring at the stars. She stood beside him in silence for a long time before speaking. "Are you afraid?" "No." Tae-ho did not look away from the stars. "I stopped being afraid a long time ago. Fear requires hope. You have to believe you might survive to feel fear. That is sad. That is war." Hana moved closer. "Why do you fight, Tae-ho? Really? Not the speeches? Not the legend? Why do you keep going?" He was quiet for so long that Hana thought he would not answer. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because the moment I stop, everyone I could not save will have died for nothing. Every soldier who fell beside me, every child who burned in that school, every person who looked at me and believed I could protect them." He finally turned to look at her. "I carry them, Hana. All of them. They are heavy, but I cannot put them down. I will not." Hana felt tears in her eyes. She reached out and took his hand. He flinched, just like before, but this time he did not pull away. "You are not alone anymore," she said. "Remember that." On the Dominion, Queen Vetra had not slept in 2 days. She stood before a window in her private chambers, staring at nothing. her mind racing with memories she had tried to forget. Commander Dral entered with his head bowed. "Your Majesty, the human fleet is gathering at the Crimson Gate. Our scouts count approximately 400 ships." 400? Vetra laughed, but there was no humor in it. 400 against our 10,000. They are insane. They have the Reaper. Vetra spun around, her purple eyes blazing. One man. He is one man. He cannot defeat an entire fleet. Dral said nothing. He had spent the last 2 days reviewing old footage of Teho's battles. He had watched the Reaper walk through gunfire that should have killed him 100 times. He had watched him defeat warriors twice his size with nothing but his hands. He had watched an entire army run from a single human. "Your Majesty," Dral said carefully, "perhaps we should consider—" "Consider what? Retreat?" Vetra's voice rose to a scream. "I am the Queen of the Kel Empire. I do not retreat from humans." "I do not retreat from anything." Dral bowed deeper. "Of course, Your Majesty." After he left, Vetra stood alone in the darkness. Her hands would not stop shaking. She told herself it was anger. She told herself it was excitement for the coming battle. But deep down, in the place she never showed anyone, she knew the truth. She was terrified of one man. 2 days later, the human fleet gathered at the Crimson Gate. 437 ships, ranging from massive battle cruisers to tiny fighter craft. They formed a thin line across the choke point, facing an ocean of enemy vessels that stretched beyond the horizon. Teho sat in the cockpit of the Night Wind, his black armor covering him like a second skin. Around him, human pilots sent final messages to their families. Some prayed, some wept, but none of them ran. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Kang Teho. You know who I am. You know what we face. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive this day. But I promise you this. The Kel will never forget what we do here. The galaxy will never forget. And when the history of humanity is written, they will say that on this day, we stood together and refused to die quietly." Then he opened a channel to the Kel fleet. His voice echoed across 10,000 ships, reaching every alien ear, including the Queen herself. "Queen Vetra, I gave you 5 years of peace. You wasted it. You burned children. You laughed at their screams. So now I am going to finish what I started. And this time, there will be nowhere for you to run." He cut the transmission. The Night Wind's engines roared to life. "All ships," Teho commanded. "Follow me." And the Battle of Crimson Gate began. The first wave of Kel ships crashed against the human line like a storm hitting a shore. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Ships broke apart in silence, their crews dying without sound in the cold vacuum. Teho flew the Night Wind through the chaos like a ghost. Enemy fighters tried to lock onto him, but he moved too fast, too unpredictable. His weapons tore through Kel ships one after another, leaving trails of fire behind him. Around him, human pilots fought with desperate courage. They were outnumbered 20-1, but they did not retreat. Every ship that fell was replaced by another that pushed forward. Every pilot who died did so knowing that their sacrifice bought precious seconds for their people. "Reaper, this is Blue Squadron," a voice crackled through the radio. "We are taking heavy fire on the left side. We cannot hold much longer." Teho pulled the Night Wind into a sharp turn and dove toward the struggling squadron. 3 enemy destroyers were bearing down on them, their massive guns charging for a killing blow. He flew directly at the lead destroyer. Its guns turned toward him, but he was faster. The Night Wind slipped through a gap in its shields, and he fired every weapon he had. The destroyer's bridge exploded in a ball of orange fire. The ship began to drift, dead in space. The other 2 destroyers tried to target him, but Teho was already gone, sliding between their hulls like a shadow. He found their weak points, the places where armor was thin and systems were exposed. 2 shots, 2 explosions. 2 more enemy ships became floating graves. "Reaper," Blue Squadron's leader spoke with awe in his voice. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Keep fighting." But for every enemy ship Tae-ho destroyed, 10 more took its place. The Kel fleet was endless. Human ships fell one by one, their lights going dark against the stars. After an hour of battle, only 300 human ships remained, then 250, then 200. The Kel were winning. On the Dominion, Queen Vetra watched the battle with growing satisfaction. "The Reaper fights well," she admitted, "but he is only one man. He cannot save them all." Commander Dral stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Your Majesty, he has destroyed 47 ships by himself. Our losses are higher than expected." "Acceptable losses. Continue the attack. Crush them completely." But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her heart. She watched the night wind dance through her fleet, watched it kill and kill and kill without stopping. It was not human. Nothing human should be able to fight like that. Tae-ho saw the human fleet dying around him. He saw brave pilots make their final stands, ramming their ships into enemy vessels rather than retreating. He saw families torn apart, futures destroyed, hope fading with each explosion. It was not enough. Fighting from his ship was not enough. He opened a channel to Hana. "I am going in." "What?" Hana's voice was sharp with fear. "Going in where?" "The lead destroyer, the one commanding this section of the fleet. If I can take it down from the inside, their formation will break." "Tae-ho, that is crazy. You will be surrounded by thousands of soldiers." "Good. I work better when I am surrounded." He paused. "Hana, if I do not make it, tell Sung-ho I forgive him." Before she could respond, he cut the transmission. The night wind dove toward the massive Kel destroyer, dodging fire from every direction. He found a landing bay and crashed through its shields, slamming his ship into the metal floor. The armor sealed around him as he stepped out. Emergency lights flashed red, alarms screamed, and 100 Kel soldiers were already running toward him, weapons raised. Tae-ho drew his blade in one hand and his gun in the other. For a moment, time seemed to slow. He saw every enemy before him. He felt his heart beating steady and strong. He remembered why he had buried his armor, why he had tried to escape this life. Then he remembered 83 children burning. He moved. The first soldier died before he even saw Tae-ho coming. The second died a heartbeat later. The third, fourth, fifth fell in a single stroke. Tae-ho moved through them like wind through leaves, his blade cutting silver paths through the air, his gun firing with perfect precision. The corridor filled with screams and silver blood. Kel soldiers poured in from every direction. They came in squads, in platoons, in waves that seemed endless. They fired everything they had at the black figure that walked among them. Some shots hit him. His armor sparked and cracked, but he did not stop. He did not slow. He did not fall. "What is he?" a soldier screamed before Tae-ho's blade took his head. "He is death," another answered, and then he died too. Tae-ho moved deeper into the destroyer, leaving a trail of bodies behind him. Security teams tried to seal doors in front of him. He cut through them. Elite guards formed walls of shields and spears. He broke through them. Nothing could stop his advance. The bridge was defended by Commander Dral himself. Dral was massive, even for a Kel. His body was covered in scars from 100 battles. He held a weapon that was part sword, part gun, glowing with deadly energy. Behind him, terrified officers watched through a glass window. "Reaper!" Dral growled. "I have wanted to meet you." Tae-ho stopped. Blood dripped from his armor. Some of it was his own. "Move aside." "I cannot. My queen commands this ship." "Your queen is a murderer of children." Dral's eyes flickered with something that might have been shame, but it passed quickly. "I am a soldier. I follow orders." "Then you die a soldier." They crashed together with enough force to crack the floor beneath them. Dral was strong, stronger than any enemy Tae-ho had faced in years. His weapon swung in deadly arcs that would have killed a normal man 10 times over. Taeho blocked, dodged, countered, but he was being pushed back. His armor was failing. His body was exhausted. His wounds were bleeding faster than they could seal. For the first time in the battle, he felt doubt. Draal slammed him into a wall. The metal crumpled behind him. The massive Kell pressed close, his weapon at Taeho's throat. "You are just a man," Draal said. "All those stories, all those legends, and you are just flesh and blood like anyone else." Taeho looked up at him. Through the pain, through the exhaustion, he managed to smile. "You want to know the difference between humans and Kell?" "What difference?" "You fight because you are ordered to. We fight because we choose to." Taeho grabbed the weapon at his throat and pushed. His muscles screamed. His bones cracked, but he pushed. "And we never give up." With a roar that was more animal than human, Taeho threw Draal backward. He followed with a strike so fast it was invisible, his blade cutting through the air toward Draal's heart. But at the last moment he stopped. Draal looked down at the blade touching his chest. 1 more inch and he would be dead. "Why?" the Kell warrior gasped. "Why do you not kill me?" Taeho pulled back his blade. "Because you fought with honor. Because you doubted your queen's cruelty. And because I am trying very hard not to be a monster anymore." He walked past Draal toward the bridge controls. Behind him, the Kell commander knelt on the floor, unable to understand what had just happened. Taeho overloaded the destroyer's core. Alarms began to scream new warnings. The ship had 5 minutes before it exploded. He returned to his battered ship and flew out, just as the destroyer began to break apart. The explosion was massive, bright enough to be seen across the entire battle. And just as Taeho had predicted, the enemy formation began to crumble without its command ship. Far away, on a small strike craft, Hana led a team toward the Dominion itself. Their mission was simple: disable the flagship's shield so Taeho could reach the Queen. They fought through defense platforms and fighter squadrons. They lost half their team in the first hour, but they kept going because giving up was not an option. Nari's voice came through the radio. "Hana, I found the shield generator, but there are too many guards." Hana looked at her remaining soldiers. 5 people against an army. The math was familiar. The math was death. "Then we make it quick," she said, and led the charge. They broke through by pure force of will. Nari reached the generator and began to work. Hana stood guard at the door, firing at every Kell soldier that appeared. "Almost there," Nari shouted. "Just a few more seconds." A plasma bolt caught Hana in the side. She fell, gasping in pain. Her vision blurred. She heard Nari screaming her name, heard the generator powering down, heard the shields falling. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the night wind diving toward the Dominion. Taeho was coming for the Queen. The throne room of the Dominion was built to inspire fear. Massive columns of black stone rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Purple flames burned in holders along the walls, casting strange light across the floor. At the far end, on a throne made of the bones of conquered species, sat Queen Vetra. She was alone. Her guards were gone, either dead or fled. Her commanders had abandoned her when the shields fell. The entire Kell fleet was in chaos. Ships breaking formation, captains refusing orders, warriors whispering that the war was already lost. The great doors of the throne room bent inward. Then they exploded. Kang Taeho walked through the smoke and fire like something from a nightmare. His black armor was cracked and burning. Blood leaked from wounds that should have killed him hours ago. His visor was shattered on one side, revealing an eye that glowed with cold fury. He walked slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silent hall. He did not rush. He did not need to. They both knew how this would end. Vetra stood from her throne. She was still beautiful, still elegant, still every inch a queen. But her hands shook. Her voice trembled. "You have won nothing," she said. "Kill me, and another will take my place. The Kel Empire will never stop. We will burn every human world. We will—" "Stop talking." Tae-Ho's voice was quiet, but it silenced her completely. He kept walking forward. "I came here to offer you a choice," he said. "Surrender. Broadcast your defeat to every ship in your fleet. Order them to withdraw. End this war." Vetra laughed, but it was a desperate sound. "Surrender? To a human? I am the queen of 1,000 worlds. I do not surrender." "Then you die." "Perhaps." Vetra's eyes began to glow. Purple energy crackled around her hands. "But perhaps you die first." The psionic blast hit Tae-Ho like a truck. He flew backward, crashing through a stone column, landing hard on the floor. His armor screamed warnings about system failures. His vision went white with pain. Vetra walked toward him, her power building with each step. "You think you are special? You think you are some kind of hero? You are nothing, just a violent animal that learned to kill." Another blast. Tae-Ho felt his ribs crack. Blood filled his mouth. "I have lived for 300 years. I have conquered civilizations that existed before your species crawled out of the mud." Vetra raised her hands, gathering energy for a killing blow. "And I will not be defeated by one pathetic human." The blast came down like lightning. The floor around Tae-Ho melted into slag. Smoke filled the air. For a long moment, nothing moved. Vetra smiled in triumph. Then a hand reached out of the smoke. Tae-Ho rose, slowly, painfully, but he rose. Half his armor was gone. His left arm hung useless at his side. One eye was swollen shut with blood, but he was standing. "How?" Vetra stepped back, her eyes wide with disbelief. "How are you still alive?" Tae-Ho spat blood on the floor. "Because my people are watching." He took a step forward. "Because I made a promise." Another step. "Because you burned 83 children and laughed about it." Another step. "And because humans do not know how to stay down." Vetra screamed and threw everything she had at him. Psionic blasts tore through the air. Purple fire burned against his skin. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend as she unleashed power that had destroyed armies. Tae-Ho walked through it all. Each step cost him more pain than any creature should be able to bear. Each step brought him closer to death. But each step also brought him closer to Vetra, and that was all that mattered. Finally, he reached her. Vetra fell backward, her powers exhausted. She scrambled away from him until her back hit the throne. She looked up at the broken, bleeding human standing over her, and for the first time in 300 years, Queen Vetra felt complete terror. "Please," she whispered, "please, I will give you anything. Wealth, worlds, I will make you a king, I will—" Tae-Ho reached down and grabbed her by the throat. He lifted her off the ground, his remaining arm trembling with the effort. His blade appeared in his other hand. Somehow, despite the broken arm that held it, one strike would end it. One strike would avenge all the dead, all the children, all the years of war and suffering. He looked into Vetra's purple eyes and saw nothing but fear. She was not a powerful queen anymore. She was just a terrified creature begging for her life. His blade touched her throat and stopped. The memories came flooding back. All the faces of everyone he had killed. 3,000 at Vega Station, thousands more across a dozen worlds, the weight of death that he carried every moment of every day. He thought about what killing Vetra would make him. Another notch, another face to see in his nightmares, another piece of his soul burned away. He thought about the 83 children, and then he thought about what those children would want him to be. Tae-Ho lowered his blade. Vetra stared at him in confusion. What are you doing?" "I am making a different choice." Tae-Ho reached over and activated the broadcast system on Vetra's throne. Every ship in the Kel fleet, every colony, every corner of the Empire. They were all watching now. "Kneel," he said. "What?" "Kneel and surrender, in front of your entire empire. Show them that the war is over." Vetra's face twisted with rage. "Never. I would rather die." "No, you would not." Taeho leaned close. "Death is easy. It is quick, but living? Living with the knowledge that you knelt before a human? That everyone saw you weak and defeated? That will torture you for the rest of your very long life." Tears ran down Vetra's silver face. Tears of rage, of humiliation, of complete despair. But she understood. Death would make her a martyr. Surrender would make her a joke. Slowly, with the entire galaxy watching, Queen Vetra of the Kel Empire lowered herself to her knees. "I surrender," she whispered. The broadcast carried her words across the stars. On Kel warships, soldiers stopped fighting. On human colonies, people emerged from shelters and looked at the sky. On Earth, millions who had prepared to die found themselves suddenly alive. The war was over. 3 months later, Taeho stood on the observation deck of New Busan, watching Earth rise over the horizon. The planet was still scarred from the attacks, but it was healing. Everywhere across human space, people were rebuilding. The door opened behind him. He turned to see Hana walking toward him, a cane supporting her weight. Her wounds had healed mostly, but she would always carry the marks of battle. "They are holding a ceremony," she said. "The leaders of every colony want to give you a medal. Name a holiday after you. Build statues." "No." "I told them you would say that." Hana smiled and stood beside him at the window. "What will you do now?" Taeho was quiet for a moment. "Seung-ho died last week. In his sleep. Peaceful. I heard. I'm sorry. He told me something before the end. He said that the real victory is not defeating your enemies. It is choosing who you want to be after the battle ends." Hana looked at him. "And who do you want to be?" "I am not sure yet, but I know I am done killing. Done being a weapon." Taeho turned away from the window. "Maybe I will go back to Haru 7, grow vegetables, watch sunrises." "That sounds lonely." It was. He looked at her. "Maybe this time I will not go alone." Hana felt her heart skip. "Are you asking me to grow vegetables with you?" "I am asking you to help me learn how to be human again." She took his hand. This time, he did not flinch. Lee Nari found them there an hour later, still standing together at the window. She was carrying a datapad full of repair requests and engineering problems that desperately needed attention. "There you are," she said. "The fleet needs—" "Oh." She noticed their joined hands and smiled. "Never mind. The fleet can wait." "Nari," Taeho said. "Thank you for the night wind. I am sorry I broke it." "You came back alive. That is all I asked." She grinned. "Besides, now I get to build an even better one." That night, across human space, people celebrated their survival. They lit fires and sang songs and told stories about the Battle of Crimson Gate, about a man who walked through an army alone, about a queen who knelt in defeat, about the day humanity proved that it would never surrender. In the years that followed, historians would debate what really happened. Some said Taeho was superhuman, enhanced by secret technology. Others said he was just a man, but a man with something worth fighting for. Some said the whole story was exaggerated, that no single human could have done what the legends claimed. But those who were there knew the truth. They had seen a farmer become a warrior become a legend, and a legend become human again. Across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed humanity as weak quietly revised their records. Under threat assessment, they added a single note: never give a human something to fight for. And in a small farmhouse on a quiet planet, Kang Taeho finally learned to sleep without seeing faces. The weight he carried was still there, would always be there. But it was lighter now, shared. The Reaper was dead, But the man who used to be the Reaper was finally free.